All right, our next author, and I'm going to say this is probably one of our youngest authors here, is Andrew Goldstein, and his book is called Growing Up Green. So please go ahead. Let's welcome him.
Hello there, everybody. Hope you're having a nice evening. My name is Andrew Goldstein, and I wrote Growing Up Green, Living, Dying, and Dying Again as a fan of the New York Jets. It's about my childhood growing up as, well, a fan of the New York Jets. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let's take a while to get acquainted first before I dive into my story. So, I'm a senior at Princeton High School, about 5 minutes away from here. And I live in Cranbury, New Jersey, which is about 5 minutes in the other direction, 5-10 minutes. Lived in New Jersey my entire life, and I'm going to high school for about 10 more days before I head off to Marquette University. You see, this is how I've been feeling for months. I'm ready. I'm ready to get out on the road. Yeah, I'm going to Marquette University to study digital media and journalism. And really, it feels like a long time coming because ever since I was 6 or 7 years old, I wanted to do pretty much what Mr. Stark over here is doing on an everyday basis. I wanted to do sports. I wanted to write sports. I wanted to commentate sports. I wanted to watch sports. Everything in sports that involves not actually playing it, I wanted to do that. And I'll tell you, when I was a little kid, when I was 5 or 6 years old, I wanted to play it too. I wanted to somehow play and announce, but, you know, if you look at me now, I'm 5'9", I'm 140 pounds. You'd think I'm making it as an NFL running back. That's not going to happen. I'd be going up against people literally twice my size. So I realized from early on, 6, 7 years old, that the whole NFL thing wasn't going to happen. But so I started searching for a new career path by the time I entered 2nd grade. And And by this point, I was a Jets fan. I say this in the book, and I believe it, that it's your parents' job to brainwash you into rooting for their team. But neither of my parents were sports fans, so my grandma and grandpa had to pick up the slack there and steer me towards the Jets. So I'm watching the Jets for a couple of years, and I suddenly think, I love sports. I love football specifically. Every teacher I've ever had has told me, politely, albeit firmly, to stop talking. Why can't I be a sports commentator? Why can't I get paid to talk about sports? And one thing led to another. I was hooked, and it eventually led to this book. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my life as a fan, a little bit about how this book came to be. I'll read you a passage from it, impart 1 or 2 life lessons that I think are important to the storyline, and then take a quick question or 2 and pass it on to the next guy. All right, so I've loved football my entire life. Age 5, my grandma and grandpa showed me a New York Jets game, and I love my grandma and grandpa. They loved the Jets, so went along with them. And this would be all well and good except for one thing, and for any of you out there who follow football, you know this. The Jets are bad. They're not good. Put it to you this way. Like, who here has seen a sports movie like Rudy or The Natural or anything like that? You know how at the end the team like overcomes adversity and the guy hits the game-winning home run or makes the game-winning touchdown and like everybody lifts them up on their shoulders? The Jets reverse the process. That's them for the first 3.5 quarters. And then the adversity and all that ends up crushing them for like the only part that matters. So they're the anti-sports movie. And I follow this team, and they've been my favorite team for about 12 years now. And as me writing this book should tell you, I'm way more invested in them than I should be. But ever since I was growing up, every kid sort of has this niche. Everybody has their thing. I was the football guy. You know, like Mr. Stark was the baseball guy I was telling you about. I was the football guy. Anytime anybody wanted to know about their fantasy team, they'd come to me. Anybody wanted an opinion on something that happened in football, they'd come to me. And I had sort of developed that. I wanted to do this for a living, so one day I was kind of bored in free period at school. You know, I'd finished all my homework early. And I just sort of thought, hey, why not start writing my life story? And so I ended up doing it. This is a book detailing how being a Jets fan and being a sports fan has changed me, how it's taken on new and different meanings as I've grown up, how watching sports draws people closer together, essentially why being a fan matters. And I want to read you one brief passage from the book that I think best illustrates that. So, by the way, I just want to say, it feels tremendously awkward to read from your own book. And whenever I read from my own book or watch myself on tape, I am super self-conscious. So, but with that aside, part of the reason why being a sports fan stops being so important... sorry about that, I misread here. You see, I'm already tripping over words. Part of the reason why living life starts being a little bit boring after a while is because that sense of idealism, the whole anything can happen at any time spiel, starts to lose its initial luster. Just like how transitioning from childhood to adulthood slowly removes the rose-colored glasses from your eyes, being a sports fan does it too sometimes. And this is a period after the Jets have been losing for a while. Winning the lottery, watching a favorite team go undefeated, starting the next Facebook, being in the stadium when your favorite team wins it all, these are the things that happen to a select few other people. So we often alter our expectations to match reality. I guess a part of me was dumb enough to neglect to do that, which probably explained why every excruciating Jet loss caused me to react like it was the first time it had ever happened. Which, of course, is why this particular team, the one that was winning, finally, one year, took on far more significance than it should have for me. I don't want to give you the whole English teacher, this particular event is a metaphor for something because blah 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 speech, but I'm afraid I have to, because these wins symbolize something greater, something that I thought I'd finally learned to let go of. Having a team capture your imagination like this, take you to the brink of despair only to pull you back into euphoria, it's one of the greatest experiences that can ever be had by a fan. So when it starts happening to you, amid all the wild comebacks and can you believe they did it again storylines, there begins to emerge a tiny glimmer of hope. Because most people that support teams like the Jets refuse to allow themselves any more than a glimmer. That this is the year. Hope, nevertheless. This sort of expresses the battle between knowing that your team isn't quite good enough and yet still believing all the same. Now, one final thing that I want all of you to walk away with, then I'll take a question or two and then, like I said, pass it on to the next guy. One of the most common criticisms levied at sports commentators, and I see it all the time on Twitter and some people have chosen to run it in their columns whenever viewers write their fan mail, is stick to sports. This idea that when sports writers and sports commentators try to venture outside of sports, to use it for anything but entertainment purposes, somebody will write and say, I like when you just did sports, you should stick to that. First of all, from a completely neutral perspective, it's ridiculous to tell anybody what they should or should not be saying in their column when they're eloquent and have earned the job. But moreover, people sort of have this idea that sports should only be used for entertainment's sake, that there's no life in sports, when really that couldn't be further from the truth. Happiness, anguish, cheating, sportsmanship, bigotry, tolerance, everything that you see in the world outside of sports is somewhere in the world of sports. It's in the world around us, and it's in ourselves as well. And I don't think that that's a side of sports that gets explored often enough. There are wonderful people, wonderful stories, just as wonderful as anything else you'll find in the world, all in the world of sports. So I encourage you to, if you aren't a sports fan, if you've never considered watching sports, to just take a look around. Maybe watch a documentary or something, because the depth of human emotion, the human experience in sports is what makes it great. It's why I want to get into the business that I want to get into. and it's why I wrote this book. So with that, thank you very much for listening to me and indulging me, and I'll be taking a question or two. Question or two.
I just want to say that I wish my husband was here. He is a diehard Jets fan. He's been a Jets fan for all of his 50
We walk a lonely road.
You are him probably like 40 years ago or something. So like I could totally identify. It's wonderful.
Well,
you captured all the angst that is built inside of years.
Well, thank
It's like
you.
the perfect book. I thought it was going to be about the environment.
See, that's why I included the subtitle, because all my classmates are like, I'm glad you did that, because when I heard Growing Up Green, I thought it was going to be about healthy eating or something. But I actually like to say that any fan, not just Jets fan, but any fan could have written this book. I just happen to be the one who's lucky enough to have gotten the chance to, because I like to think, and this will be, possibly achieving the greatest thing that I ever hope to achieve, if this is true. I'm hoping that there's a little bit of everybody in this book, that there's at least one thing that everybody can sort of nod their head at. So I feel like anybody could have written it, I just happen to be the one that did. So, if there are no other questions, I'll turn over to the next guy. Thank you very much.
What a wonderful guy. That was great.
Thank
That
you.
was very refreshing. Very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Our next author is going to be Patrick V. Sublia, who wrote My Success at the Crossroads of Autism and Spirituality. Welcome to Barnes & Noble, sir. Thank you.
Well, the actual title of the book is Without Your Sin,